Canterra has a project next to, I believe it's in close proximity to Marathon's Valentine Lake project. And yeah, I'm interested to hear all about it, what you've got planned for exploration this year. And I also want to thank you for lending us the map that you put together in your presentation. I think that's the most thorough map laying out all the different plays in Newfoundland. So I appreciate that, Chris, and I'll let you take over.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Deborah. No problem on sharing that map. It took a lot of time putting together all those different projects, given how hot the island of Newfoundland is right now for gold exploration or just exploration in general. So yeah, as Deborah said, my name is Chris Penempede. I am the president and CEO of Canterra Minerals Corporation. We're probably sort of the newest company on the block on the island of Newfoundland. We're exploring for gold in central Newfoundland in particular. And we've just closed our deal at the end of 2020, just before Christmas, with Altius Resources for the projects we're going to go through in this presentation. So we've been trading for about 2 months now. We trade on the TSX.V under the symbol CTM, and in the US on the OTCQB under the symbol CTM-CF. The usual forward-looking statements that I'll most likely or certainly make throughout the course of this presentation. Before we jump into the projects, a bit about me and our team at Canterra. My background is a professional geologist. I spent most of my career working in Canadian North and Alaska, working in covered terrains, which will become important as you see as we go through these projects, but certainly with a strong focus in gold and copper. And more recently, actually, I've been spending my time in Nevada. Someone else that most of the people on this call are probably really familiar with is Randy Turner. He's our chairman of the board. He's already been mentioned once in these talks as also chairman of Aurelius. But certainly he's had a very successful career all over Canada, not to mention the keynote speaker in Artemis and their Blackwater project, having been part of the team that discovered that deposit back in 2011. But certainly also known for his work in diamonds with discovering the Snap Lake diamond mine and selling that to De Beers Mining in the early 2000s. The rest of our team is rounded out by capital markets veterans in Andrew Farncrum and Gary Lindsay, and also John McDonald, who is a geologist that worked alongside Randy through all the diamond discoveries. So why Newfoundland? For me, I was originally drawn to the area when large parts of the island started to get staked in 2016 on the back of Marathon's first resource at Valentine Lake. But really, it's turned into probably the hottest jurisdiction in North America right now for gold exploration. So we've acquired the Wilding project there in blue, directly adjacent or to the east-northeast of Marathon's Valentine Lake project. And outlined in red here is what Elmer was talking about with Orwas. That's the trace of this Rogerson Lake structural corridor or Rogerson Lake fault zone that crisscrosses the island of Newfoundland. And it's really a newly emerging gold belt, with Matador's Cape Ray deposit just peaking 1 million ounces, Valentine Lake at 4 million ounces and counting. Certainly our discoveries on the Wilding project in Moosehead, you're really seeing the discovery rate creep up here. And it's certainly emerging as Canada's newest gold belt with similar structural architecture to the world-class Archean greenstone belts on the mainland, the Abitibi, the Cadillac Break, and etc., just a younger age. So we acquired 236 square kilometers of ground directly east-northeast of Valentine Lake, along trend along this Rogerson Lake structural corridor. So zooming into the local scale here, you can see our claims here in blue, with the Wilding project being the one we're going to spend most of the time on. It's the most advanced at this point, and our Noah Paul project, which continues off to the northeast there. We're just south of the towns of Buckens and Millertown. Both these towns supported base metal mining going back to the 1800s, so certainly a strong basis and understanding of mining. And more recently, they supported the Duck Pond mine that was operated by Teck up until 2015, which is just off our claim boundary on the Noel Paul block there. So we're about a 50-kilometer drive from Millertown down through good roads and into our project through forestry access roads. And what I really want to highlight here is obviously our proximity to Marathon Gold in the gold color here, and they're 4 million ounces and growing. And so these property blocks more or less cover the Rogerson Lake structural corridor, or locally here it's called the Valentine Lake Shear Zone, as it trends to the northeast all along Marathon's deposits and zones, and then into the Wilding block and our discoveries there, and then continues to the northeast. All right, so looking at a drone image of our project out to the east, northeast, you can see it's heavily forested, or was until recent clear cutting, and there's very little outcrop. In fact, there's really no outcrop. And that probably speaks to why this was left undiscovered until late 2015, early 2016. It was through the forestry activity pushing logging roads with excavators and bulldozers that the original discoveries here were made. Through that road building, quartz vein boulders were uncovered, and those quartz vein boulders returned high grades of gold and looked very similar, in fact, the same as the veins that host those classic orogenic style veins that Marathon has on their property just to the west. So after the original discovery, there's a bit of staking rush and some consolidation by Altius Resources. And then following on that, there's a series of sort of groundwork exploration that was done in soil sampling, trenching, which you can see in the photo in the background, and ultimately drilling that yielded both high grades in drill results, and also channel samples showing more disseminated style mineralization. So all told, there's 3 major discoveries with the drill bit, a bunch of other targets that were left untested. And so really that provides a great starting point for us at Canterra to come back into this project and aiming for 5,000 meters in 2021 to expand upon those zones. Okay, diving into a little bit more of the technical detail between these 2 projects. So it's just the geology map here. Marathon's Valentine Lake project is in the blue outline. Wilding is in the purple. And so what I want to point out here is that the geology is similar between the 2 projects. In fact, it's the same. And the trend of that Valentine Lake shear zone in the dotted line here continues northeast through the Valentine project, takes a bit of a flexure before continuing northeast through our Wilding block. And what should pop out to you here is that all the gold zones or deposits that Marathon has, and also our discoveries on our block between Elm, Alder, and Red Ochre, all line up basically proximal to or on the mapped extension of that shear zone. So certainly anytime that you can point towards having a project with the same structural and geological setting next door to 4 million ounces and growing is a great starting point for an exploration company. Quick note of the actual economics behind the Marathon project. It's got a pretty robust mine life of 12 years right now at 1,300 gold with 175,000 ounces per year. And I think what's critical here is that all this area is covered by thin till cover. So a lot of the discoveries have been made very recently, obviously ours in 2015, but critically Marathon continues to make new discoveries with their Berry Zone this time last year, and that should come into expanding their resource here at the end of Q1. And they continue to make new discoveries along that Valentine Lake shear zone, which is clearly a sign that it's a very robust gold system. All right, so zooming right into the center of the Wilding project now, I've just plotted up gold in soil. The trace of that Valentine Lake shear zone is this teal color here. And what immediately should pop out here is that there's a lot of gold endowment in and around the trace of that shear zone. So certainly this is a great starting point for us. There was a small drill program in 2017, just 30 holes or 2,600 meters that came in and tested a few of these areas of anomalous gold in both soils and trenching. And the hit rate was fantastic from that program. Anytime you can come in with a drill and basically drill a virgin ground and hit in 3 different zones, 3 different rock types, hit both high grades, 5 meters of 10 grams, half a meter of 40 grams, but also a more bulk tonnage disseminated style gold at red ochre, where you have up to 17 meters of a gram. That's a very good sign that you have a robust gold system and a great starting point for us in 2021 to step out from those zones, hopefully continue to grow the gold footprint, but also drill some of the untested targets. So for our 2021 program here, we're going to start with a small winter drill program, just 2,000 meters. And this is basically what we can fit in before spring thaw, which is usually in early April, though it's been quite a late freeze up this year with winter only arriving a week ago. We'll have 2 priorities with this program. The first being we're going to go back to Elm, where we have those high grades, and step out along strike and down dip, and hopefully continue to grow that zone. The second priority will be red ochre, where we have that disseminated style gold mineralization, and we'll continue to step out from there. And the other thing we're going to do is try to make some new discoveries. So, we have a great starting point here with golden soil and the drilling that was done. So there's quite a few targets in Dogberry and west and east of red ochre that haven't seen any drilling yet. And so we think there's a good chance to make a new discovery there with this first round of drilling. All right, so to summarize the opportunity here, obviously I think we have one of the better addresses on the island. Anytime you can point towards multiple gold discoveries, both high-grade golds and disseminated style gold in an emerging gold belt next to what is Atlantic Canada's largest undeveloped resource base, well on its way to development and perhaps production, you can't ask for a better starting point in my mind. We have numerous drill-ready targets, so a lot of the boring work, or at least boring in terms of market perception work, has been done in terms of soil sampling and trenching. So we're really set to just get out and drill and make the next round of discoveries. Obviously, I think our team's pretty good with myself and Randy, having worked in covered terrain such as this through most of our careers, and certainly many discoveries and selling of companies on Randy's behalf throughout the years. And really, we're going to be focused on the science-based exploration. Anytime you're working in covered terrains like that, that's critically important to be able to see through that cover and continue to make discoveries. All right, so the milestones and catalysts, we acquired the Wilding project, which was the primary catalyst just in December 2020. As part of that acquisition, we also financed with $3.7 million to support our winter and summer drilling and exploration plans. We achieved the OTCQB listing just recently and look for the start of winter drilling, hopefully in the next couple of days here. There's also quite a bit of archived surface work that was never submitted to the lab from previous operators, so we've sent those off for assay results. And then obviously the results from winter drilling early in Q2 is what we look forward to, and then summer exploration in later Q2. So I'll leave it at the capital structure slides in case there's questions surrounding that. The summary here is we've today about 18 million market cap, and the share structure, which is 52 million outstanding, is really held pretty tightly between high net worth individuals, management, and Altius by way of doing the deal for the projects. With that, I'll leave it for your questions, and thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for leaving a few minutes for questions. I don't see any in the Q&A box, so I will remind participants that if they want to ask a question, feel free to input it in that box. And I've got a couple questions. I'm going to give you my favorite one, which is, with your upcoming 5,000 meter drill program, what would you determine at the end of the program, like what would make it a success? What are you looking to achieve?
That's a good question, Deborah. Thank you. And so I think the best way to look at that is sort of to look to the neighbors and what they were able to achieve, given it's the exact same sort of setting. So Marathon made their first discovery at the Marathon zone through 4,000 meters of drilling And then another additional 4,000 meters got them to that smaller resource of 200,000 ounces. Now it's obviously above 1 million ounces, so they've done a lot more drilling to get there. So where we are inheriting the project here is, we've had 2,600 meters of drilling and multiple discoveries. And so at the end of this 5,000 meters, I would look to us to have started to put those together and see which one of those has continuity and can grow. And then that'll set us up down the line here to hopefully get one of those to a resource.
Okay, great. My other questions, and I have been listening to all the presentations, and I don't think it's been discussed in detail. What is the seasonality for drilling in Newfoundland?
It's a good question, and it is variable where you are on the island. But for us here in central Newfoundland, we can almost drill year round with you kind of want to make breaks, especially in spring when things are thawed. And Marathon doesn't have this problem because they've gone through the track of updating roads to adding gravel. But for us, it can get mucky and not impossible, but more difficult in April while things thaw out. So you kind of lose April, and then you're good May to sort of when freeze up happens again. This year, they didn't even get freeze up until just a few weeks ago. So really, you could have been drilling all the way through, and then probably had to take a pause while winter storms came in and the initial freeze happened. So it's almost year round with sort of just like a month here and there that it's probably best to take a bit of a pause.
And would you throw up that slide that you shared with us earlier in the week, just for the audience to see it? I think for me, this really helped lay the whole play into context. And I think it goes well with what you're talking about in terms of the drilling season. And then
Sure.
I guess my other question is, so what's your expiration plan relative to the money that you've raised? It seems like you're putting a lot of the money right into the ground.
Yeah, that's right. So of the exploration money, we raised 2.7 amidst flow through. So certainly that's going to go straight into the ground. But we've built Canterra to be pretty lean. We because of COVID, we have no office. All of our employees work from home, and except for me, all of our employees are based on the island. So it's really going to be focused on sort of rapidly advancing wilding, and then spending money on Noel Paul, getting it to a conclusion to whether there's continued prospectivity there or not. So summer will feature a lot more soil sampling, trenching, in line with sort of continuing to drill at wilding, and then hopefully on the back of results from soil and trenching, we can drill other areas as they hopefully turn out to be of interest. So I've just thrown up that map I put together, showing sort of most of the major players on the island right now. And so you can see, obviously, Orwest, us, True Precious in the central part of the island. And certainly as you get towards the coast, weather gets a bit more rough and tumble during certain parts of the year. So there's different seasonality concerns there.
And I have a couple audience questions. What is the cost of drilling per foot?
That's a good question. It's actually the cheapest I've ever seen, and I've worked in Nevada, Ontario, Quebec. If you're just looking at straight meterage cost, it's $90 a meter, but all in tends to be somewhere between $130 and $150, depending what labs you're using.
Why is it so cheap?
I think there's an abundance until recently of drill companies. And the cost of labor on the island of Newfoundland seems to be much cheaper, especially when you compare to places like Nevada or BC that sees a lot of drill activity and a lot of competition for those drillers.
Sure. And we have one more question, which is somebody's asking if you need to use helicopters or is it road accessible? And I think this is a really good point to make once again about the whole play in Newfoundland, the accessibility.
Absolutely. I've spent far too many hours, thousands, in fact, in helicopters and doing helicopter fly programs. So This is very refreshing. As you can see from this map, there's roads that basically go everywhere, and because logging here, especially in central Newfoundland, has been renewed in recent times, there's been a lot more roads and access built in. So we can drive throughout both of our projects. The west part of our project is a bit trickier, but you can still do it. And obviously we can look to build a road further west there as we have reason to. So yeah, we don't have a need really for helicopters unless on some of our Waylorn projects, there's tiny pockets where it would make sense as an early pass to go into those areas and just soil sample with a helicopter. But for the moment, everything we do is easily road accessible, which is it's a great place in Newfoundland because that just brings your costs on everything way down.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Chris, for taking the time to walk us through the story. Look forward to seeing some results out of you this spring.
Thanks. Yeah, we're excited to get the rig turning and see results. So thanks very much for having us. Thanks, Deborah. Thanks, Tina.
Thanks.